In the late 1950s, the Soviets faced a terrifying problem. American U-2s were snapping photos from 70,000 feet, and the rumored B-70 Valkyrie promised to roar in at Mach 3, untouchable by existing defenses. The generals demanded the impossible, an interceptor that could leap into the sky like a rocket, sprint at nearly 3,000 kilometers per hour, and hurl massive missiles at intruders before they reached Moscow. This wasn't about dogfights or aerial duels. It was about raw speed, altitude, and overwhelming punch. Out of that order came the MiG-25, a machine so extreme it bent the limits of engineering and still holds world records today. Steel is heavy, yes, the Soviets noticed. Here's where the story takes a sharp left turn. Most of us expect advanced aircraft to be made of exotic materials like titanium or high-performance aluminum alloys. The Americans went down that path with the SR-71 Blackbird. The Soviets, however, did something shocking. They built most of the MiG-25 out of stainless steel. Yes, the same general family of material that might be in your kitchen sink. At first glance, that sounds crude, but it was a brilliant engineering compromise. Steel, on the other hand, could be welded in large panels, was relatively cheap, and could withstand the heat with minimal fuss. It was heavy, yes, but it was reliable and scalable. Soviet engineers built a fast jet not with exotic alchemy, but with brute practicality. The result was a huge, rugged airframe that could take punishment and keep flying. The intake design followed the same brute force meets physics philosophy. Instead of elegant conical spikes like those on the MiG-21 or SR-71, the MiG-25 used giant rectangular variable ramp intakes with slab sides. These could handle shockwaves at supersonic speeds and shovel enough air into the hungry engines at extreme altitudes. In photos, the intakes look oversized, almost cartoonishly big, but they were the right solution for a jet intended to fly where air was thin and unforgiving. Afterburners that drank like sailors. To propel this flying furnace, the Soviets turned to the Tamansky R-15B 300 turbojet, a monster engine originally designed for supersonic drones. Each engine produced about 73.5 kilonewtons of thrust dry and a blistering 110 kilonewtons with afterburner. With two of them strapped to the airframe, the MiG-25 could scream to Mach 2.83 in regular service, and on a dare, push past Mach 3.2. Of course, that kind of speed came with a price. At those extremes, the turbines spun so fast and grew so hot that they warped. Soviet manuals openly warned pilots not to exceed Mach 2.83 unless they had no intention of seeing their engines survive another flight. The MiG-25 was not a sports car, it was a drag racer with an engine timer ticking down. And oh, the thirst! At high speed, the Foxbat guzzled kerosene with the enthusiasm of a marathon runner at a water station. Endurance was measured in minutes if you were sprinting at altitude, but that was the whole point. This was never meant to loiter like a patrol fighter. Its mission was climb fast, run hot, fire its missiles, and get back to base before the gas tank went dry. In other words, it was the fighter equivalent of a hit-and-run specialist. The radar that glowed in the dark. Step inside the avionics bay and you'll find another delightful twist. While Western jets were increasingly full of sleek transistors and integrated circuits, the MiG-25 carried avionics based on vacuum tubes and nuvistors. It sounds like something out of a World War II bomber, but once again, this was smart engineering. Vacuum tubes can tolerate high heat and even nuclear electromagnetic pulses better than fragile early solid-state electronics. The result was a radar, the RP-25 Smerch A, that was enormous and incredibly powerful, pouring hundreds of kilowatts into the sky. Its job was simple: find high-flying bombers at long range and guide giant missiles toward them. Later versions of the jet, designated MiG-25PD, received the improved Saphir 25 pulse Doppler radar with the ability to look down and track targets against ground clutter. But in its original form, the Foxbat was unapologetically a single-purpose machine. Point huge radar at sky, find bomber, fire missile. Missiles the size of tree trunks. If you think the jet is extreme, wait until you see the weapons. The MiG-25 carried R-40 Acrid missiles, some of the largest air-to-air missiles ever built. These were not the nimble little sidewinders you imagine on a dogfighting jet. Each R-40 was a massive spear designed to fly long distances at high altitudes and bring down big, fast targets that might be jamming or maneuvering. The Foxbat could carry up to 4 of these beasts, usually a mix of radar-guided and infrared-guided variants, so it could prosecute a target no matter the jamming environment. Later MiG-25 PD models also carried smaller, more agile R-60 missiles on the outer pylons, giving them some flexibility against lighter targets. But the heart of the Foxbat's arsenal was always the R-40. These missiles made the jet look less like a fighter and more like a flying missile truck, which was exactly the point. Performance that boggled the mind. The MiG-25 was built for extremes. Officially capped at Mach 2.83, it could push beyond Mach 3 in emergencies, with a climb rate that shattered records. In 1977, test pilot Alexander Fedotov set the still unbroken altitude record of 123,520 feet, brushing the edge of space. Yet its power came with trade-offs. Limited to about 4.5 grams and prone to control issues at speed, the Foxbat was unstoppable in a climb, but clumsy in a turn. Against an F-16, it was less duelist than freight train, blindingly fast but hardly agile. The day the Foxbat came to Japan, the mystique of the MiG-25 reached a dramatic climax on September 6, 1976, when Soviet pilot Viktor Belenko defected to Japan in his MiG-25P. Western analysts had been losing sleep over this mysterious Soviet superfighter, and suddenly one landed in their lap. What they found shocked them. The airframe was made mostly of steel, the avionics were tube-based, and the handling was far from that of a nimble dogfighter. Yet they also discovered that it was incredibly well suited to its mission. The Foxbat was not a fighter in the Western sense. It was a specialist interceptor. It had been overestimated in some ways, but the respect it earned for its brutal efficiency was genuine. The jet was later returned to the Soviet Union in pieces, but the intelligence gained helped the West calibrate its understanding of Soviet design philosophy, teaching the old Foxbat new tricks. After Belenko's defection exposed the MiG-25P, the Soviets introduced the MiG-25PD in 1979 with a new radar, stronger engines, and better missiles. These upgrades extended its service life but couldn't change its role as a pure interceptor. The true evolution came with the MiG-31, which built on the Foxbat's speed but added range, modern avionics, and versatility. The MiG-25 was raw power. The MiG-31, its refined air, real-world combat, and records that endured. Despite its narrow role, the MiG-25 proved itself in combat. In the early 1970s, Soviet-flown recon Foxbats flew over the Sinai at speeds and altitudes that Israeli F-4s couldn't match, cementing its reputation as an untouchable spy plane. During the 1991 Gulf War, an Iraqi MiG-25 downed a U.S. Navy FA-18C, the only American manned aircraft lost to enemy fighters in that conflict. In 2002, another Iraqi Foxbat shot down a U.S. MQ-1 Predator, among the first manned versus drone kills. And Fedotov's altitude record still stands, a permanent reminder of the MiG-25's dominance in vertical flight, shaping the West's strategy. The MiG-25's debut in the late 1960s shook U.S. planners, who mistook it for a superfighter and accelerated the F-15 Eagle program. The Eagle's powerful engines, big radar, and performance margins were shaped by this fear. Belenko's defection later exposed the Foxbat's flaws, but by then, America had built a world-class air superiority fighter. The MiG-25 didn't need to defeat the Eagle, it forced its creation. And that, my friends, is the story of the MiG-25 Foxbat. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the wild world of Soviet engineering, make sure to hit that like and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.